Are you looking for a new cinematic universe to follow now that the MCU has been put on hold? Are the DCEU movies just not doing it for you anymore? Did you know there's another place to follow your favorite DC characters? This is the DCAMU, DC Animated Movie Universe. There are 14, yes, you heard me right, 14 unique movies that have an array of DC characters spread throughout them that continue one narrative which will culminate in the upcoming Justice League Dark Apokolips War. Now that you know what to do, don't waste any time. Go on those interwebs and start streaming. Sponsored by Local Touch Online, a free online magazine that has an exclusive article by Pop Culture Geekery every month. Hello everybody, welcome back. So you guys obviously have no idea what we've gone through just to get this broadcast going. We tried a skit. Technology failed us, and we've tried 4 different times to get back on here. Roy claims that he sees me completely frozen, so it's going to be interesting because he won't see any reactions from me. So hopefully you guys will be able to see both our reactions. But anyway, so we are in part 7 of our countdown. We're almost there. Next week is when we finally get to cover Apokolips War. So this first one we're going over tonight is called Batman Hush. It's based on the Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb story of the same name. This was one of the ones I did follow as it was coming out because, of course, like I mentioned before, if it has Jim Lee, I usually seek it out and I'll usually follow it until he's off the book. So, in fact, I remember specifically seeing the solicit for the book that comes after this one ends, and I was like, guess I'm canceling it in my subscription service.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you? Did you follow this one as it was coming out?
Oh yeah, for sure. I got that. I followed it, and then I ended up buying the trade for it. And the cool thing with this one, just for y'all out there who don't know, I assume because you're watching this, you have an idea who Jim Lee is. But Jim Lee is a god in the world of comic books. He currently is the president, I believe, of Marvel.
You mean DC?
I'm sorry, DC. Oh my God! See, but
don't hit the dislike button. He didn't mean it.
but the reason I say that is because everybody knows that's where he started. So
yes.
So if you are truly a fan, Joe, then you will know that that's okay because it's what put him on the map. He started way back. My first. For me, anyways, my first view of anything that he's done was X-Men. When he came on to the X-Men, man, he just took the world by storm. And I know he did some other projects before then. And I followed his career. I mean, for me back in was it 91, maybe before that. It just feels so long ago now, but I followed him as far as I know. He at one point he was supposed to be a doctor. His parents wanted him to be a doctor, and he took a couple of years and he wanted to try his hand at comic books and got into Marvel and entered several submissions and was finally accepted. And he just took the world by storm with X-Men, put him on the map. I mean, it sold millions upon millions, and they've reprinted it several times. And I mean, anything now probably has some influence from what Jim Lee did to X-Men back then. But yeah, so getting to Hush though, when he came on Hush, it was like, oh my gosh, there is one character I think that Jim Lee is absolutely known for, and that's Batman. Like, again, there's certain artists that were born to draw a certain role. I think I've mentioned this before. But for Lee, it's Batman. He does Batman like nobody else. No one else can touch him like him. And with all due respect to the other artists, he is the artist for Batman. So yeah, seeing this, I got to meet him when this came out. I got some covers signed by him. It was the one time I met him years and years ago when it was out. So I got him to sign a couple stuff. So absolutely amazing guy. One of the nicest people I've ever met. When they say don't meet your heroes, he is one of the few exceptions because he was absolutely just a great guy to talk to and loves his fans. And I mean, just took time, So it's really great that I got to experience that about the time this came out. So for me, this one I was really excited when I posted. I was watching this last night, but yes, because it is such a great. For me, it's such a great book, and for so many reasons, nostalgia, and just because it's Batman and it's Jim Lee drawing Batman. It's like, how much more awesome can this get, basically? So yeah, this was a great one for me.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know if it was you or one of my other friends. We used to joke about we just wanted a book out there called "Jim Lee Draws Everything."
Yeah,
like
and
it doesn't matter what it
we're
is.
kind of getting that. So that's kind of cool with the all the auctions he's doing with the artwork. It's amazing to see. He just did Batman and is it Ace Bathound, which is awesome. So we're kind of getting that too right now. So it's perfect timing for this movie. For me, it was just like, this is perfect. Like, we've got Jim Lee doing all this amazing art. He still has it. I swear the stuff he's doing right now with these auctions. It's weird. It's like he's been holding back. It's like, what can Jim Lee do if he has the time? And now we're seeing just this amazing display of his talent. Just outstanding. I can't wait for that art book to come out. I know they're going to do a special thing for this, so people can at least own the prints or the collected edition of all his work that he's been doing. So it's such a great thing to do too. A great cause to help out comic shops during the quarantine. So yeah, I mean, I can't stop talking about Jim Lee. He's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I had very similar history, and I followed him right as he left X-Men. Again, kind of like we mentioned with Death of Superman, I got into comics right as that was ending. But of course, that's when he was starting, helping start Image Comics, and so I followed him all the way through there.
Yep.
I was one of the lone voices of his company, Wildstorm, for the longest time. Even had the Wildstorm Addiction podcast that we used to run, all the way up into the New 52, which is when some of his characters were integrated into the DC universe. Unfortunately, none of them lasted, but they're still considered part of the catalog now.
Oh yeah, iconic stuff. And yeah, so you liked them when they weren't cool. It was cool before they were cool. Got it.
Exactly.
Some people do bands and stuff. Joe does comic books and creators and stuff. Yeah, no, that was cool. The Image is amazing. Still is.
Yeah. Yeah, I wear the shirt of the bands that I actually listen to, as you can clearly see.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so when this one came out, like you said, I think it was the first time he really had drawn Batman. I mean, I don't know if he'd done any pinups or anything like that before, but this was like the first full storyline that I remember that he was involved in. And it had Jeff Loeb as the writer, who some people out there you will hear. It's almost a split camp with him. It's like some people just cannot stand his writing, and some people love his writing. But yeah, he's to me. I've read a lot of different stuff from him. He's more. I don't know. This might be a little bit extreme, but he's more like a Michael Bay for me when it comes to comics, because he writes very not like fan servicey, general audience.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's a fanboy to me.
Yeah,
very much a fanboy. Like if I like his stuff, it's probably because if I wrote something, and I'm a terrible writer, which doesn't really speak much for him. I'm not trying to insult him, but I'm just saying I get what he's doing. I know he had some misses, but I mean, for the most part, I liked it. He was doing X-Men, so I mean, I liked his stuff back then too, and so it was a familiar. This was a team up again, a reunion almost, right? Like this Hush story.
Like the two of them working together, you mean?
Yeah, was he working on, or was that Chris Claremont doing X-Men back then for the 90s series?
Yeah, no, that was Chris Claremont just for like the first 3 issues.
Okay. Yeah, I just associate the two of them for some reason. Like, and it's funny that you say like with this, when he started doing this Batman series with Hush, the stuff he did then is still now being used for ads and anything Batman, like their flagship character. It's Jim Lee. You're going to see stuff from that series. Like there's that iconic shot of him from one of the covers where he's swinging towards the camera, his foot's up, and it's that forced perspective shot. And it's just, that's how good, like that's how much of a mark he made on the character, and just bringing life into this. I mean, an already popular and established character. He's a flagship character, but this kind of like just put him like almost in God status with Batman. It was just like it made Batman really cool again. Not that he wasn't already, but I don't know. He just brought something different, and just when you didn't think there was something new you could do with the character, he did it, and it just looks amazing.
Yeah, and one of the things that Jeff Loeb did in this story, which is translated into the movie pretty well, is he purposely came up with a story to where Jim Lee could draw just about every Bat villain there was.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
So that worked great for the comics because everybody got an issue basically.
Yeah.
But kind of in this movie, we may seem that might have hindered this movie a little bit. Kind of like we've seen in other movies we've gone over where the characters, like there's too many of them basically.
Right. Yeah, this one had a lot of them, but I like how they used them. We can do both. Well, what I was going to say on this one, I believe last time we talked about how they change up the style a little bit. That whenever a new artist comes in, and on this one, I don't know if you noticed it, they did actually change up the style. It's still 52, but the designs have changed a little bit, quite a bit actually, and they kind of worked it in, from the storyline where he falls and stuff, but. You can see the difference in the art style. And as a matter of fact, as I was watching it, I was telling my better half, I was like, hey, do you notice they keep changing the style a little bit? Like it switches almost from 52 to this Jim Lee-esque style. Like you can, especially with Batman and being the main character, you see his head kind of, almost the shape changes. It's not as wide. Now this one's a little more Jim Lee. It's not almost narrow, but it's just Jim Lee. It's iconic. And then like they kept his hairstyle, but overall, like it just changed. If you look at it, if you watch it, they even changed Superman's costume. He's not wearing the 52 costume anymore. He's got the belt, I think, but now he's wearing more like the traditional costume that he has. I don't think he's wearing the trunks, though. I'm trying to remember if he had the trunks on, but I don't think he did. But so there was kind of an update to that style, which I thought was interesting because this is supposed to exist, I assumed, in the 52 world because the continuity is there, but they really kind of made this its own thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely follows the movies we've been seeing in the countdown, but this story actually happens, I want to say, about 5 years in our time before the New 52 launched. So it's another one kind of like the Death of Superman, to where... and we talked about this in the very first episode of our countdown, is that they picked and chose what they wanted to keep for the New 52, and one of the things they kept was the Batman lore. So Hush still technically happened, but there's some ideas in here that they add in, like Damian, for example. Damian wasn't a thing yet in the Hush storyline. So,
but he makes a cameo, doesn't he?
In the movie, but not in the comic.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but that's just, like I said, kind of like with the Death of Superman, how they tailored it to this New 52 universe that's being animated. That's kind of what they did here, but they didn't have to make such drastic changes here like they did with the Death of Superman since it was so much older. Right. So with this... Oh yeah, about how they had to adapt it.
Yeah, because there's no mention of Superman dying or any of that. So I didn't even. I think that's what. I guess I must have forgotten because I was like, that's weird. It just feels out of place. But now that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's see. So with this one, it's been so long since I've actually reread Hush that a lot of this, is fuzzy in my memory. But the intro seemed different. I remember the introduction of Tommy Elliott, who even back then, it's one of those. It's like, oh yeah, this is Bruce Wayne's friend, like from childhood. Y'all didn't know.
Yeah, like everybody knows Thomas Elliott. Come on, guys. Tommy's been there from the beginning. He was there. Yeah. It was one of those. I was trying to explain this to Norma. I was like, yeah, there are certain characters, like there's things that happen in this movie where it's like, wait a minute, how did this character capture? Like there's later on there's a scene where you find out the Joker's been kidnapped, and Norma was like, wait, there's no way someone could kidnap the Joker. And I had to explain to her, and you may know this as a writer, that there's like certain elements in the story that that have to happen. Like there's certain events that have to happen that wouldn't normally happen. Like there's just no way, just like she said. But it's what pushes the story, so it has to happen. Almost when they depower a villain, when they become good, when you have another villain against the villain, they've got to somehow make this happen. Like the Joker got kidnapped. That wouldn't, I wouldn't say it would never happen, but it was definitely out of character for him to be surprised and taken, as a hostage or whatever you would call it. He was has been a kidnap, a victim basically. So, but it lent to the story, so it had to happen in order for this story to move forward. So I don't know if you know what that is, but that was interesting with this Tommy character too. It's like, oh yeah, Tommy. Like, okay, let's just go with it, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different kind of suspension of disbelief, but at the same time, like the Joker thing, I think was supposed to be shocking. It's supposed to make you think, oh, this new villain got to the Joker, so that means he must be really threatening,
Yeah.
So let's see here. So they just introduce him. They show that Catwoman is here. There's a line that said way towards the end of the movie that was kind of shocking to me when I thought back to this intro of her. According to the in-universe explanation, it's been 10 years since her and Batman have seen each other, which is crazy.
Oh, wow.
Because that's even before Justice League War.
Yeah.
So again, it's its own world, but you kind of have to know these characters already because I mean, they do a good enough job with Catwoman here to where you'd get it, like you'd understand it, but especially by the resolution of the story. But
yeah, because she didn't even know about Damien and stuff. Like you find out later that she's like, oh, and that was kind of interesting. I was like, man, he just told her. But,
yeah.
But yeah. So I think that was good because, and if you think about it, and I was like, oh yeah, she hasn't. When you just said that, she hasn't been in any of these that I can remember. Not even the else. What would you call that story? The Flash one, Flash Paradox. I don't even think she was even in that. So.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean.
No, she wasn't in that one.
This is the first time we see her.
Let's see here. So they start off, like I said, just the random cameos, which a lot of these, like I said, back in the original story, were just kind of like an excuse for Jim Lee to draw them. Lady Shiva shows up, and she just mentioned how she's associated with the League of Assassins, but she's basically just a stop on the journey of the story. Like, we never see her again after that. But there's this whole thing where, apparently there was some ransom that was supposed to be paid to Bane, which at first, the way they portrayed Bane, to me, it's so weird with Bane. Like, some writers get him right away, and some they just don't understand him. To me, the ideal Bane, even though I know people complain about him, is the Dark Knight Rises Bane. Like, that's still the good at best idea of Bane, and of course the original Nightfall introduction of him. Like, that's Bane.
Yeah.
To
me, Bane's always going to be one of those generic characters. I know he was iconic, but to me, he's always just going to be a marketing stunt. I'm probably on that ship of where I just don't. I don't know. My favorite iteration of him, honestly, is from Harley Quinn, the animated series, the new one. That is the best Bane out there. The other ones, I'm just like, I can't. I'm just like, this guy was just kind of like slapped together. I mean, his design is so bad. I cannot get behind this character, but he is perfect in Harley Quinn. I didn't ever think I'd like him until I saw Harley Quinn. Fantastic job.
Yeah, I need to catch up on that show.
he's just this blundering idiot, and I absolutely love him in that. So good job, DC EU or DC, whoever's in charge of that, because they wrote him perfectly. That's a role he needs to play.
But yeah, you find out that even they mentioned that he's kind of uncharacteristically, just destroying everything, and Alfred's like, isn't he more eloquent? Usually. Another character that I just realized she comes in, but she doesn't come back, is Batgirl.
Yep.
So
we got a little glimpse of her in the last one, just a real quick shot of her.
Yeah,
and then she saves him when he gets injured, when Batman gets injured. Yeah.
So an interesting thing about that is that when the actual Hush storyline happened, it was pre-52, so Batgirl was still Oracle. So, and I honestly have never looked up to see what they did exactly to bring her back in the New 52, but I know she's back. So she makes her appearance and then she's gone. They introduce Hush pretty early. Of course, he's just supposed to be a mysterious character. And he has it out for Batman.
Yeah, they do like a red herring thing on this, like who is this character type? And it's obviously the point of this is to figure out who is Hush. And that was the big thing in the book. I remember was like, who's Hush, and they did a really good job, I think, where they lost it in this one a little bit. In the books, I remember them almost doing it like it could be any one of these people, or is it somebody new, or is it Tommy Elliott, or is it, so I thought they did a great job, Jeff Loeb and them, with that. Like, it was like, man, who is Hush? So in this one, I kind of felt like they didn't quite carry that as well. I felt like it was a rush story on that part, because they covered it like in, I don't know how many issues it was. I can't remember now, but I know it was like, do you remember how many? Was it 12 or less? Was it a year?
I feel like it was 12.
Yeah,
I
and so
wrong.
each one featured a new villain. So in this one, they kind of just crammed it into about an hour or so, hour and a half, whatever it was. So yeah, I guess they had to do it for story purposes to finish it. So unfortunately, they did kind of lose that. I don't know, the mystery of it, And matter of fact, I think he solves it pretty quick in this.
Yeah, because the resolution, as we'll find out later, is different than the comics, which is good, probably, especially if you've read it. You didn't want to know everything that was coming.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the main story points here, it's funny that a lot of them are truly motivated by money, like Poison Ivy. It was almost uncharacteristic of her to be motivated by money so much, but she's the one that's like controlling apparently Catwoman,
Mm-hmm.
and
Bane.
let's see here. Yeah, she's controlling Bane. Hush. I remember this part from the comic. Like, he shoots Batman's grappling hook and he falls and actually fractures his skull or something that requires actual brain surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So Tommy
luckily,
Elliott actually, yeah.
Luckily, his best friend from all, way back in the day. Yeah, no, just kidding. I get a hard time, but it's fine. I get it.
But after that, and I think they did this in the comic too, to where they came up with an excuse for him to wear the old blue outfit,
mm-hmm.
because the head has more padding, according to Alfred.
Right. I thought that was great. The reveal was fantastic. Now, there are certain moments, like I mentioned before, where they change the art style. There are certain glimpses we get in this, just kind of like how they've done with the other movies. They pay homage to certain things, like in The Death of Superman, we saw the steel newspaper cover, and just certain scenes. But like in this one, there are key moments where you see Jim Lee's not so much his art style, but definitely homage to what he did. And like when they show the costume, there's certain scenes where that's Jim Lee. You're like, oh, it almost looks like they just took it and took a lot of the inking and all those cool lines and stuff that's in his work out, but they kept the core look of it, and they show these scenes. I was surprised there weren't more of them, especially some of the iconic covers, or like the one of him leaning on the gargoyle, that big, iconic shot of Batman overlooking Gotham and stuff. Yeah, it was interesting to see how they were still able to kind of do the 52 art, but then they definitely nod to Jim Lee stuff. Like I said, they kept switching back and forth. I was watching that pretty closely.
Yeah, because man, like I was looking through my notes here. Right after that, like when they bring Bane in, Amanda Waller shows up.
Yeah,
and of course, they talk about Suicide Squad. Mm-hmm. Which still to me doesn't justify that movie we watched, but whatever. There's actually lots of lines from the comics I recognized, especially a lot of the dialogue between Batman and Catwoman. Mm-hmm. Those are some of the shots that I remembered of them kissing and things like that, so they did keep that. I am kind of speeding along because I know you're limited on time. But
well, I was going to say, we can talk about that. So like, in this story, they kind of focus on this whole idea of Batman. I guess he's almost coming to this realization, and his supporting cast is like, you can embrace this other life, you can be this person, you can love somebody, basically. And it's something that Bruce Wayne has always struggled with. Is it Batman wearing a Bruce Wayne costume, Bruce Wayne wearing a Batman costume, kind of thing. But in this one, we really see this relationship story, I guess, this focus, where he starts to date Selena Kyle, and you see him going back and forth on whether or not he should reveal who he is. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It really led to the story. And again, it was like this new, I don't want to say new trope, because he has dated other girls or women, but this is the first one I think where we kind of got like that Vicky Vale moment in the 89 Batman, where he reveals who he is, and that whole struggle or whatever. But we're seeing that in this animated movie for the first time, and it's an interesting dynamic. They even team up for a little bit, and there's a relationship. He even introduces her to Dick Grayson, and tells him. Well, Dick Grayson tells her about Damien, which I thought was really interesting. I was like, you can't just tell someone that. I'm like, especially like Batman has all these guarded secrets. For him just to say it was just like, and I guess because it wasn't in the book, I couldn't really like compare it. But I was just like, whoa, like let's slow down. But for the sake of the movie, we had to hurry up and get that out. But I thought that was an interesting aspect of the story in this.
Yeah, you're like, Nightwing, read the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of speeding through, they do kind of speed through, no pun intended, the Superman conflict, which in the books is a little bit more epic.
Yeah.
Where basically Poison Ivy takes control of him. Mm-hmm. We actually get a Lex Luthor cameo here, and he mentions his Justice League membership. Yeah. And he also mentions helping defeat Cyborg Superman.
Right. Which is interesting because there is no mention of the death of Superman in this. It's like there's nothing to it, but I guess how long were you saying it's been since then that this has happened?
Between the two movies, I'm not sure. It can't be that long. It was just that Catwoman had been 10 years. She mentioned specifically. Okay. And then, like in the next movie, we'll see that was 5 years prior. So 5 years seems to be the timeline from when war happened to now. Okay. So somewhere in there that did happen. So yeah, I figured Death Superman just happened not too long ago.
Yeah. Well, and that's really cool because I was going to say what's kind of neat is I'm assuming I'm trying to remember, but I don't think Jim Lee had really drawn Superman in any like long form, and so when he came out in this book, again, it's just one of those things where it's like for me, it's always Dan Jurgens for Superman, but Jim Lee is a like right there, like when he draws Superman because he does such these epic things. The only thing that hurts him when it comes to that are the stories. I just don't like the stories that go along with his Superman, but the artistic expression on the Superman is just amazing. Like it's right on there with Batman, but it's always Batman first for Jim Lee. So to see him, and for them to cut it so short, it was kind of disappointing because that was such a cool scene in the book.
Yeah, and then they changed. I guess they didn't think a kryptonite ring was as intimidating, so they gave him kryptonite brass knuckles, basically.
Yeah. Or synthetic, I think. Yeah.
So let's see. So yeah, then they have that whole thing with Harley Quinn. Let's see, where her look was changed a little bit. She had the sleeveless costume.
Yeah, it was
compared to the traditional.
It was almost. They cut the sleeves at the shoulders to the middle of the bicep kind of thing, but most of it was the same. And like there, we find out that Hush has kidnapped Joker somehow. They don't show it, but somehow he's been kidnapped, and he basically blackmails Harley into killing Bruce Wayne. And so that's where we get the opera scene and goes after her, and that's where we get a big moment. Joe, explain what happens.
Oh, well, real quick, I was going to say there was a part in there where I caught an Easter egg. Mm-hmm. Catwoman's cat is named Eartha. Like Eartha Kitt, one of the original Catwomen.
Yeah, and she even tells her earlier, I was like, say perfect. That was kind of funny.
The big moment, are you talking about the beatdown on the Joker?
Well, no. The big story part of it as to why it happened. I was just like, oh, crap. And I remember that in the book, too.
Oh, because he kills Tommy Elliott?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, this is why I wish I had read it more recently, because I do remember that happening. I remember him walking out, and seeing the Joker over his dead body and all that. But I did like this, to where he basically, because it's his best friend from childhood, so he starts beating the crap out of the Joker, mm-hmm. And they still have the same resolution to where, Gordon shows up just in time and he talks about how, he shouldn't do it, and because he'll become just like the Joker and Gotham needs him. And mm-hmm. So, it was, I remember in the book, and in here too, but it meant more coming from Gordon, because they've been together in this fight for so long.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to hear, hear him, stop Batman from going over the edge, basically.
Yeah, and I almost felt like would there have been anybody else that could have done it like that? And I think about his support system, and maybe I think the only other person would have been Alfred, but I think it was definitely I don't know what the word is. I don't say iconic, but it was definitely necessary for it to be Gordon. And I was like, yeah. He's like, don't make me do this. He's like, don't make me don't throw your life away. Basically, for him, don't lower yourself to him. And he had to remind him. And it's funny because that's kind of the whole thing of the story. In the end, it's like I have to be better. I've got otherwise I'm just like them. So it was kind of a theme that went through this whole thing, reminding you why Batman doesn't kill, like what he stands for and why he does the things he does, why he doesn't use a gun, all that stuff. So
yeah, there's also a lot of background characters that a lot of them don't have speaking parts, including that montage you mentioned earlier about when Catwoman and Batwoman team up.
Yeah.
But like you get Renee Montoya in the background, you get Lucius Fox in the background. During the villain montage, you get
Penguin,
Two-Face. Two-Face, a very bad Mr. Freeze. I don't know where that design came from. It definitely was not the Jim Lee design.
It was the Arnold version or something. Yeah, I noticed that too.
It looked like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a refrigerator with a gun. Yeah.
So, just let's see here. So in the comic, I'm trying to remember, was it actually Tommy Elliott? Like he had faked his death or something? But
that's
then
what I remember.
Yeah. But then he had gotten to. So this is an interesting little character that's in the Batman mythos named Harold, who's like a.
Oh, that's right.
I don't even know what he's supposed to be. He's like. He helps Alfred. He was like a guy off the street,
Yeah, basically he's a mechanic that was on his luck or whatever you call it, and Bruce hired him because he had a special gift, and he basically worked on everything, like the Batmobile and everything, all this stuff. He knew about all his tech and stuff like that. So he was kind of like an IT person or a tech person, basically.
Yeah, but he was an old idea. Like I remember in one of those early Batman comics I picked up, he was in there, and even back then, just getting into it, it's just like, who is this?
Yeah.
And so that's why if I never read those old Batman comics, I would really not know who he is by the time we get to the end here. But thankfully, they don't go anywhere with that. But although I still am kind of questioning, the resolution of this one, so I'm moving here along. Real quick. So basically in this one, the Riddler ends up being Hush, which I was like, okay, I guess, even everybody in the story was kind of like, what, that C-lister,
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the only thing that kind of brings this story down for me, actually, in both versions of it.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing, like, I didn't want it to be Tommy anyways, to be honest, because it was just too obvious. Like, all of a sudden you got this guy that comes back into his life who seems to have this almost like hidden vendetta against Bruce, and then he's the same height, build, and everything, and we've never heard of this guy. And then it's the person Hush is, Batman's finding out, or Bruce is finding out that he knows Batman or Bruce pretty intimately. He knows about who he is and who to target and how to get to him, basically, almost, like surgically, no pun intended. So, for me, it was kind of a saving grace, but at the same time, it was kind of it's like the Riddler, really? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why is he so, like, his physiology changed. And I was like, wait, the Riddler's not a big guy. If you know the Riddler, he's never been a big guy. He's like Jim Carrey, and Hush was more like Batman's build, like a big dude. So, 6 foot, 6'5", 6'7", just a big guy. He's a big dude. And for them to make it the Riddler and then just explain it away with the Lazarus Pit, I was like, I don't know. I don't know who's to blame for that. I wasn't crazy about it, but at the same time, I would rather have been him than Tommy Elliott, because I was like, no, that would just be bad writing.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention they squeeze in Scarecrow and Clayface there.
Yeah. Again, Clayface is awesome, but Clayface and Harley Quinn, oh my God, he's the best. He's just as good as Bane. He's right up there. That whole
Oh,
series
you're
is
talking
awesome.
about the other show? Yeah.
On Harley Quinn, yeah, you have to
Yeah.
watch that show. Like, he's just the whole cast is amazing. Harley Quinn's little rogue. Sorry, not to get off on a thing, but her whole supporting her goon squad is absolutely amazing. They're so funny. They're so well written. It's hilarious. The fact that they can cuss is great. It really lends itself to this. And we'll have to do a review on it if we can, because it's fantastic. But yeah, he rips out. You know, he did a reveal where he rips out his voice box or something. It's a cool little fight.
Yeah, see, in discussing this with you, it's making my rating go down
Yeah.
because I feel like I feel like I was gonna be pretty lenient with it, but
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It kind of reminds me of the Stephen King story It. Like we've seen two different iterations of it, you know, and I love the opening of both iterations, but I still cannot get past the ending of either one. And I feel like that's the same with Hush. I love the artwork; it's very pretty. I love the story as it goes forward in the comics, and then it gets to the end, and it's like, huh? And I feel
Yeah.
like that happened again here. So basically, at the end, once they find it's the Riddler, you know, of course, things are exploding. He's about to fall to his death. Batman, of course, is going to try to save him, almost at the expense of his own life. Catwoman doesn't understand it, so she makes it
Cuts
to
the
where
line.
Riddler dies.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, she cuts the
Yeah.
line, dropping his
Yeah.
death.
Yeah, and then she gets mad at Batman for it, and they break up. And
Yeah,
it's
I
just
thought that
like
was.
a little
Yeah, I thought that was
abrupt.
really. Yeah, that was really. What was I going to say before that though? You had mentioned something. Damn, you had said something about the ending. What were you going to say? Or what did you say? Damn, I had a thought about that. Sorry. Anyways, yeah, it just
Oh,
about how like the Stephen King stuff. Like I like Stephen King's. I like the films. I'm a huge fan of it, so I can't complain about that. But yeah, definitely with this one, it just kind of felt like, and they missed a huge opportunity. And one of the coolest things I remember about the book that I always remember is that one scene in the Batcave where they show all the Batmobiles, and Jim Lee has drawn them all, which was fantastic. You know, and you had this larger than life. Like that's the best the Batcave's ever looked to me, because it had all his stuff just out on display, which was really cool. And they, you know, obviously probably for budget reasons they couldn't do that scene, so it was just a regular old plain Batcave. But that was iconic in the book. I remember that. So I'm sorry they missed that opportunity in this as well.
yeah. Only other thing I saw was that I did like the person who played Harley Quinn, and I thought it was Tara Strong again, but it actually was not. It was somebody named Hynden Walsh. And so Tara Strong's listed in the credits, but only as a reporter. So I found that very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know this
So,
Hynden Walsh chick. I've never heard her name in anything else. I'm looking at her, like what she's done. She's done a couple voices. She was in Groundhog Day. That's a big one. She's in the current DuckTales. And then there's even stuff in here that's listed that doesn't even have photos. So, you know, it's I don't know. She's from Adventure Time. Apparently, she plays Princess Bubblegum. I don't know who that is, but
yeah, huh. That's probably how she got known then, because I don't really watch that show. But I liked her as Harley Quinn. That's why I was like,
yeah, no, she did a decent job. Yeah.
But anyway, so ratings 1 out of 10. I think I'm gonna go with a 6 on this one, just because that's where I start rating stuff when it starts to bother me. Like it doesn't bother me as much as like Suicide Squad, but it started getting there, and it was more when we were discussing it. How about you?
Well, where did you rate Suicide Squad?
Oh, that was my 4, and you were the 3. Yeah.
I'm gonna because of nostalgia and just because it was Jim Lee, and you know, I still enjoyed it even knowing what I knew from watching it the first time. And it even though it just came out, it feels like it's been out a long time. Watching it, you know, I know it's 2019, but I was just like, wow, that's just last year. I was like, huh. So I was a little surprised. If I had to land, I want to give it a 7, but it probably does deserve a 6, because it's just the story just kind of suffered, and I don't know if that's to blame on the book or if that's to blame on completely on the movie, because they did pull a lot of stuff from there, and we do see. I think it was just rushed. They had to fit like 12 issues into an hour and a half, which it wasn't really fair. I almost felt like this could be a couple, almost a series if they wanted to, like 6 episodes, just to make it more to work better with this kind of story that was being told. But At least that way they could have focused on it and made it a series like who done it, who is Hush, and just called it Hush the series, or whatever. Just a mini series of 6 episodes, about an hour long, would probably have done it just to really give it the gravitas that it deserved. And then they could have even just done a different ending, to be quite honest, because I did not like the Riddler as Hush. I was just like, that makes no sense. It didn't track. I mean, it would almost be more sense if it was like Red Hood kind of ending, where you're like, oh my gosh, that's a big thing. Like, that's a good reveal. But yeah, so sorry. Long story short, I'll give it a 7. Probably deserves a 6.
All right, so the next one we're going to do here is Wonder Woman Bloodlines. It's actually the opening arc of that series. And so this one starts off with a nice little prologue. We basically get another version of the Wonder Woman live action movie, but in that opening, whatever, 15 minutes or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, but it was really good, though. I enjoyed it. It's 5 years ago, so it literally happens like within the time frame right before Justice League War. A lot of the classic stuff happens in that origin story. Steve Trevor crashes near Themyscira, but in this one they make it the fault of the parademons that are starting to come to Earth. I thought that was a cool tie-in.
Right.
They show how she helps them. She starts learning, about the world of man, as they call it.
Yeah.
She tries to leave, and that's when her and her mom actually have a short battle there. And it's kind of like a battle of the ideologies, that she doesn't want to leave, and she ends up taking, the sacred armor, which matches the live-action Wonder Woman armor,
Yeah.
and the lasso of truth, and so and right after that, you can see where it starts to set up where we saw her in Justice League War. We meet another version of Etta Candy. Who we saw in the live action movie, but of course very different in the movie because it's a different time period. And in this one, this is where I don't know if it started getting more original because I don't remember any of these characters, but Wonder Woman goes to live with a professor who's an archaeologist and actually befriends her daughter Vanessa, who the last name was Capitellis, and I was like, that's not Cheetah, is it? Because I started thinking, I was like, are they trying
Me too, yeah.
But apparently, we already saw Cheetah in cameos. So that's the setup for this movie, and then they flash forward to current day, which we assume is, like we said earlier, right after the death of Superman, right after Hush. Right. Even though Wonder Woman didn't show up in Hush, but they show that as Wonder Woman's been living with this professor, she's already kind of treated her daughter badly. Just doesn't really pay attention to her, really rejects her. And Vanessa is the name of the daughter. She starts rebelling. I mean, she goes full goth and everything, and so, this is where they move the story forward to where we get a character again for the Wonder Woman live action movie. We get Dr. Poison.
Yeah.
Who apparently is working for another doctor named Dr. Cyber.
Dr. Cyber, a doctor that's going around. Yep. Doctor.
They're just they're just handing out doctorates like candy.
Not Etta Candy.
So I was going to ask, now that you said that, she's an older character. I don't know when she was created, but do you think her name is a play on words? It seems like it'd be a mean play on words because she's usually portrayed as an overweight character, and the idea of Etta Candy. I don't know. Just something that popped up. I was like,
I guess I've never thought about it. I guess because to me, I'm not a big Wonder Woman reader. I absolutely love the movie, so it was my real first introduction of the character. Although I'm sure she's been in other stuff. I'm not familiar with her, so I couldn't remember her last name until I looked it up this morning, or actually just a while ago. I was like, what was her last name? I was like, Etta something. I was like, I cannot remember her name, but I like her character a lot. I love her character. She's great. She's funny. I like how they portrayed her in this movie too. She's an interesting character where I wasn't just like, who's this that they're just throwing in? I actually was watching the parts that she's in and enjoyed her role in this. So, but who knows? Probably could be.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I always try to think the origin of names of characters and stuff, and especially if they're older, they've been around for a long time. Sometimes their origins are not as nice or politically correct, nowadays. But yeah. So this one, has a lot of characters that I kind of had to look up after the fact, because the thing is that I was going to say with Wonder Woman is she doesn't really seem to have like that one villain. I know they try to tote Cheetah as her one villain, but
Right.
it still doesn't seem like that should be Wonder Woman's like main adversary. You know, like her Lex Luthor, her Joker,
Yeah, I
and
always
her.
thought that too. Like, and what they kind of did here is kind of what they did with Batman Hush, is they give a nice little rogues gallery of like, who's who of her villains. So you've got Doctor Poison, which I don't know if that's always been a thing with her, like an arch nemesis. You've got Cheetah. I always kind of thought that is it Giganta. Whenever I think of Wonder Woman fighting anyone, I always think of her for some reason. Even though I know Cheetah's supposed to be her arch nemesis, like Lex Luthor, for some reason, for me, it's either Giganta or like what's his name, the God of War.
Oh,
Like,
Ares, yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of more where I see her, but I don't know.
Well, and that's what's going to be interesting when we see Wonder Woman 1984, because I want to see a definitive reason why Cheetah is her nemesis. You know,
The
like
only thing, the only thing I can think of is because it's archaeology, and Wonder Woman's something of a myth, mythological. So there's that, and if you notice, a lot of the characters, including Cheetah, like you mentioned earlier, they all have Greek names. Like I'm looking at the characters, and they've got some in here that are Greek names mostly. Like I was like, oh, I didn't realize how heavy they relied on that. Um, well, a couple of them, anyways. Yeah.
yeah. And speaking of Giganta, you know, she does fight her in
That's a great fight.
this setup where she's going to try to stop Vanessa, who apparently is working with Dr. Cyber, and like that's how far she's fallen basically.
Yeah.
And in the middle of that, I still question this. I'm like, why did they take Vanessa's mom into the building with him?
I thought that was odd too. Yeah.
But of
Like,
course
look,
she ends up
gunfire.
dying.
Must go in. Yeah.
But of course she ends up dying. And then that's the impetus for Vanessa's story to move forward, where she's of course all about vengeance now against Wonder Woman, because she blames her. She already hated her to begin with. Because Wonder Woman basically was like that perfect stepsister almost, like that she
Like a
kind of
sister
grew
she
up
never
with.
wanted. Yeah. Which is weird because, and it's kind of it's strange. Like, and I was watching this and I was like, why are, and I don't know, like I was an okay teenager. I didn't give my mom too much trouble, but I had siblings that might have, and, other families deal with it. But I just couldn't understand. And I always look back on this and think, man, why are we so horrible as teenagers to our parents? Like, why do we do that? Because she is just absolutely horrible and to Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman shows her nothing but kindness and love. And it was like the harder, not even harder she tried, just the more she loved her, the more Vanessa hated her. And I just couldn't get like what is blocking, what chemistry is going on in the brain that doesn't allow you to accept that companionship or love or those feelings. Like, no, it's not cool to be loved or something, and I will never understand that. And looking back and retrospectively, I was just like, why do we do this? And then for her to blame Wonder Woman for her death and stuff was just, it was almost out of necessity for herself to give her a purpose, to give her a reason. And I'm not saying story wise, I'm saying character wise, Vanessa needed something to hate her for. It was like, she I don't know, she just had this blinded jealousy of Wonder Woman. It was I don't know. It's like fate, almost. It's like she was born to hate her.
Yeah, she reminded me a lot of Tara from the Teen Titans Judas Contract movie.
Yeah, exactly.
But so Vanessa becomes a character called the Silver Swan, which again I'm not familiar with her. I don't know if she's new for the New 52 or she was there before.
Worst name ever. I was like, why didn't you go Silver Hawk? Oh, okay.
You want to get sued?
I'm like, that can't still be a thing, can it? That's like the 1980s. I'm surprised though. Like, I don't know who owns that license, but I'm like, really, Silver Swan? Like, does she become a good guy at some point? Because it was just an odd name for her. All I could think of was Cisco from The Flash, naming this character, and Silver Swan would be the last name he would pick. But probably for copyright reasons, and it being the character that he is, he wouldn't call her Silverhawk either. But I felt she just needed a better name because that name sucked. especially for her rage and vengeance.
Yeah. Yeah, but she becomes kind of like this winged, being of death, because of some techno-organic virus that's taking her over.
Yeah.
Um, so the whole thing apparently is that Dr. Cyber wants to find Themyscira to steal all their technology because Dr. Cyber is like this tech villain. And in the middle of this, we do get the introduction of the invisible jet.
That was cool.
So yeah, this one they go with the whole it's an army experiment, and Steve Trevor, who I really like Steve Trevor in this, by the way.
He's basically a grifter.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Grifter. I'm watching the whole time, like, why is Grifter? Oh, that's Steve Trevor. Like, why is Grifter flying a plane? Like, why is Grifter blah blah blah? Why did Grifter go to Themyscira? Yeah, it's Grifter.
Then that would explain. That would explain why I like him then.
Yeah, they just ripped him off because that's not Steve Trevor.
I know, right? That's where they should have gone with the New 52.
Yeah.
Since, basically Grifter's in love with a Wonder Woman archetype anyway,
Yep.
and
Zealot. Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly. I'm like, it's Grifter and Zealot.
It's all making sense now.
Who's in charge of this?
10 out of 10.
Who's the president of DC? Oh, okay. That makes sense. That's awesome. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a Zealot Wonder Woman crossover. I don't know if they've already done that, but that would be interesting.
I don't know if they met. There was, not to sidetrack too much, but there was that one Wildstorm DC crossover called Dream War, and I don't remember if they got to fight in that or not.
Oh, cool. That'd be cool. If you win one of those auctions, you should tell Jim Lee to draw Zealot and Wonder Woman together. That'll be your thing.
Yeah, sure.
Take $3,000.
Yeah, well, you can. Some of them have gone well over 10,000.
Oh yeah.
So they do mention the Superman relationship as they're talking, in one of the scenes. So I thought that was good. It's more continuity.
Mm-hmm.
She does mention the League. I think he asked if they want to get the League involved, and she was like, no. It's basically, she doesn't say it this way, but it's personal,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. See, and this is one of those to me where the story, I don't know, I like it overall, and not to jump ahead or anything, but there were some things that I just wasn't really into this one as much as I have been the others, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just the horrible villain. I had no idea who Dr. Cyber was. I don't care about Songbird or Deathbird or Bird Swan, whatever her name is. I didn't care about her enough to, and it was just like she wasn't generic by any means, and I liked what the story, and it was compelling as to what her motivation was, but the character, the design was just, and I like wing characters, so I just wasn't into the character, so I don't even remember the mention of her relationship or the hall or the just, like, none of it. I'm just like, and that's because I watched it. I was like, and I just didn't keep my interest, I guess, that I didn't even remember, which is really weird. Because overall, I love the ending of it. It was the unlike Hush, it was the middle of it that was kind of like, you could have just skipped all of that and just gotten to the, like, what's the point of the story almost.
Yeah, and I'll bring that up before we do our ratings. I think there's one key factor in this, and you kind of touched on it a little bit there, that drives this movie, kind of a wedge between this movie, and you'll see what I mean in a second. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they do go along, like you said. They kind of give her rogues gallery. She does end up fighting Cheetah here. She actually fights a mutated Cheetah.
Yeah.
They mentioned Villainy Incorporated, which I looked it up, is a DC thing, which I should have known with a name like that,
Yeah, of course.
And the thing is, I do really like Greek mythology, Roman mythology. I know a lot of it's the same.
I like it too. Yeah.
Adopted, but the thing is, kind of like you, I was finding myself like this part here. I was going to talk about the Minotaur and the Maze.
Yeah. Michael Dorn.
I love that story. Yeah, I love that story. Oh, yeah, it was Michael Dorn. Good old War. But I should have been more excited about that. It's almost like, I think we talked about Justice League Dark, the whole King Arthur thing. I feel like this is getting to that point too, to where I saw it and I was like, oh, it's the Minotaur and the Maze. I know that story,
Yeah.
And they tried to make it kind of funny, because they end up defeating. Well, no, she frees him. She defeats him, but she
Yeah.
frees him.
Right.
And of course, Trevor does this funny thing where he names him Ferdinand. It's like,
Yeah.
Ferdinand the Bull,
Right.
whatever. And but then it was kind of for nothing because he doesn't even help later, So
Yeah, and it was funny because I remember when they were getting ready to go battle. I thought, and I don't know why. I remember a scene where he even joined because he said, "I will." When Wonder Woman frees Ferdinand, he says basically, "I pledge my life to protect you now." And so for him not to join, I was like, "Wait, I thought that he did go help her for some reason." As a matter of fact, I thought he died in helping her for some reason, but I don't know. That must have been what do they call that? The Mandela effect, because it didn't happen. I didn't see him suit up, but I did like a little. Again, I like Etta Candy. I did like when they show them putting all the weapons on and strapping all these things on, and then you just see Etta Candy gets her laptop, click, and she's ready to go. And I thought that was I did laugh at that.
he was too busy making dinner.
He was making dinner. Yeah, it was such a waste of the character, and I was just like, and then again, also with that, for me, the design, I guess it's supposed to be more traditional, but he was kind of boring. Like there was nothing really, like he wasn't even that big. I mean, he's a big guy, but if they were going to make him interesting, I know in like some of the other Wonder Woman movies, the Minotaurs are like 10 feet tall and or 15 feet tall, and they're in these buildings basically that's super powerful. In this, he just kind of seemed like a dude wearing a costume of a bull, and it wasn't really. He looked more like a mascot than anything else, and I was just like, eh. So to me, that's kind of what took me out of it. He wasn't as impressive for all the mythology that it was. I expected more from that. But it wasn't not. But again, I was like, let's just get to the meat of the story, and it just didn't lend it to it. So again, I was just like, eh.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because I mean, at this point in the movie, we've gotten to the part to where they're going to attack the Themyscira, because they finally find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the villains are taken out by their secret weapon, which is Medusa.
Which I thought was cool.
You did? Okay. See, again, for me, it was kind of like the Minotaur. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Medusa. Okay, it's just like.
Well, it wasn't even Medusa though. It was I think she was grown or something. She had the powers of Medusa, and she said she was Medusa. But when you hear Dr. Cypher and Dr. Poison talking about her, it sounded like they grew her in a lab. That they don't have it, and they never even showed them get Medusa. So like, there's no explanation of how they have this Greek, legend or whatever. They just have this thing, and I kind of took it as that's not the Medusa, that is a Medusa, because they said they wanted to clone her or something like that again and again, and make an army of her or something. That's when she turns on them. I don't know. What did you take from that?
Well, I remember, and see, this is part of why it was hard to follow, because I remember there was something they had in the green liquid that looked like a snake. So I don't know if it was like a sample of the actual Medusa or what, because the Medusa we got, she had memories of everything. She remembered the Amazons,
right,
and she remembered that she didn't like them,
Yeah.
And so if it was a DNA issue, then the DNA of Medusa would have to remember all that.
Well, I think it was just a clone, or like maybe even an artifact or something like that. I think there is another like true Medusa. I didn't think this was the Medusa. I think maybe it could almost be like almost Medusa, like a race. Like I know they're called the Gorgons, but I almost felt like this. I figured she was just a clone of Medusa, something that they grew in a lab and got her powers and stuff, and were able to translate into some kind of clone, because they never show her capture Medusa. I assume maybe Cheetah was able to find. That's how they kind of get her into this. She was able to find an artifact, almost like a statue that could bring back Medusa, but it was just one snake piece. So you have to imagine there's more of that somewhere else, so she can still be born. The true Medusa could still be born and still exist. So I don't know, but I did like her character. I don't know why I like this in stories, but and it's even in horror for me. I like giant things. So like for instance, I love oh gosh, I'm blanking right now. Giganta. She's awesome. I don't know why I like her so much, but I like her. I like Apache Chief, which I know is horrible politically, but Apache Chief, it was something cool about these characters that just get larger than life and that can fight, or even oh my gosh, Hogarth. What's the movie? Giant Robot.
Iron Giant.
Iron Giant, love Iron Giant, and it's just funny that I don't realize I like these things until I'm watching them. But like the fight at the end, I looked forward to it because it was a great fight. It just, I don't know, it just this small, almost like this David versus Goliath type thing where she's fighting this impossible thing. It's like, and just the way they move, they're slow but powerful, and just knocking things down and kicking people over, and the whole battle was great, and the way she takes her out was fantastic.
So I do have a
know.
question though. What
Yeah.
about from My Hero Academia? What about Mount Lady?
Love Mount Lady. I have no idea anything about her, but I like her. She's great. She's a great character. When I found out that this chick, I was like, oh, this is a cool character, and I couldn't tell you why, other than the fact that she's gigantic. I'm just like, I just love this idea, and I'm not a big. I mean, I like Godzilla and King Kong, probably for the same reason, but I'm not a huge fan of them because of the characters or anything. I just like that they're these big lumbering creatures that, like, they're or like what was it? What was that movie? Oh God, giant robots, kaijus.
Oh yes,
Like that. It was just amazing. Just these big lumbering creatures, just destruction. I don't know what it.
Man,
it's the child
I'm having a blank too.
inside of me. Just what?
I said, yeah, I'm having a blank too. That's
Oh, okay. I'm like. Just Kaiju versus Jaegers.
Pacific Rim. There you go.
Pacific Rim. Thank you. Yeah, I mean,
I was gonna go old school and be like Robot Jocks.
you know what it is? I bet you it is. What the influence is. And if it's not Godzilla versus King Kong, it's Rampage. It's got to be. The idea of these, little humans growing into these massive creatures. But especially when it comes to, like, I love Giganta. I loved Medusa in this. I love the battle at the end. It was fun. It was a fun, enjoyable. It wasn't just a fighty fight for me. It was like I wanted to see what Wonder Woman could do and how extreme she took it, because she almost died. And I like the idea that she was like, her mom is like, she's not intending to beat this. She's intending to die, but she's going to take this creature with her. So it was really, the stakes were really high, even though she was going to live. This is the closest we've seen to how vulnerable she is, other than being beaten to death by Doomsday almost. I felt like Medusa was more of a challenge to her because she got, all bloodied up. And I mean, she was kicking her through buildings and stepping on her and, hitting her with the sword. I'm surprised she didn't cut her in half, throughout the whole fight, because she kept hitting her with the sword. And, it was just relentless. It was almost like Goku, where she would, like, kick her, and before she fell, she would hit her again. And just, she took everything she could. So it was a great fight for me. I did enjoy that. If anything, that raised the rating for me on this one.
Oh, see, because I was gonna say that fight to me kind of symbolizes the whole movie for me, because yes, just to mention real quick, Rosario Dawson is awesome as Wonder Woman. Like,
love her.
Yeah, like she's such a great casting for that, and this one she finally got to shine. She's had a lot of great moments in the in the the ones before, but kind of like Superman in his movie, he got to shine for a little bit too before he died.
Yeah.
But with her, it's the same thing. I feel like what you mentioned earlier is that the heroes in this movie were great, and the villains don't live up to the heroes, in my opinion. Now, Medusa, yeah, she was awesome, but I feel like they brought her in way too late.
Oh.
Like, I feel like maybe we should have just forgot about everybody else and somehow have the real Medusa come back or something at the beginning,
cool.
And then we follow her journey of why she wants to get the Themyscira and why she hates them. And like, if we would have focused on that, it would have been so much better. But we just, like you said, we had to get through all this rogues gallery, and it almost felt like these are the two movies that it's like, here's the rogue gallery for these two characters, enjoy.
No, I hear you.
But yeah, that's the reason I didn't enjoy it as much, because even when I got to this fight, it was amazing. I loved how I hate to say it, but it's like when you see your hero get beat up so bad and then they finally overcome it, it's that much better.
Oh yeah.
But it didn't help it for me, because at that point I just didn't care anymore. I was just like, that was my own main thing with this movie, is that I was just like, all the heroes, like, that's why I said, like, I love Steve Trevor in this one so much because I was like, wow, they made him really cool and awesome. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, I like Chris Pine in the movie too, but
Yeah.
like you said, yeah, they made him like Grifter in this one.
I was
So,
gonna say, what is Grifter's name? His real name?
Cole Cash.
Cole Cash. Yeah, I like Cole Cash in this too. It was fantastic. Yeah, and you're right. Yeah, you like to see the underdog almost. And I remember them having a line right before they kiss in the Invisible Jet, where he says, you know, you fought Doomsday. This is like half. Like this is a third. But I felt like this was like maybe 2 times what Doomsday was in her, because she was on the verge of dying. Like she blinded herself and stuff. She even got bit by one of the snakes. You know, it was just like
Several times.
Yeah. So I mean, but that was probably one of my favorite parts, where she lets snakes bite her, and then she just grabs her by the snakes, by their hair, basically, and just, I mean, old school, like, you know, high school fight, just grab her by the hair and start throwing her around against buildings and the ground and everything, which I loved. And I like the fact that she flies in these. I don't know when that happened in the animated in these movies, but I liked when they finally made her fly, because I know for a long time she couldn't fly. She could jump and go long distances, and even in the first Wonder Woman movie, I felt like she couldn't fly until she reached that godhood status, I guess, where she believed, you know, that she was the weapon or whatever it was. Spoiler alert, you know, when she attacks Ares in the end. So I don't know. I kind of felt like she could always fly in these movies. So I felt it really lent a lot to the character. Although I do enjoy in the movie where she crawls up the building and stuff, that was always kind of cool, where she's just like sticking her hands into the stone and stuff. So it was definitely a useful tool to use for that, like scene. But I'm glad she can fly, and it really helps elevate the character. No pun intended, but it does elevate the character, making her that much more powerful. But again, can't say more about that. But yeah, I agree with you. If they had focused more on what Medusa was, and you know, because again, I just wasn't interested in the bird, the mom, any of that. It was like, why do we care about these people? Like, who are these people? They're new characters and they're not interesting. Veronica Cale, I think her name is, the leader of the, I'm not the leader, the owner of this. No idea who the hell she is. I was like, okay, let's just throw in this random person. And there's even a post-credit scene with her where she's like, I hate you guys for this. I don't know why. Why does she hate her?
Because she's a character from the comic. See, I had to look that up, and that was a part of the thing, is that, you know, they're putting so much of Wonder Woman's mythology in here that, you know, you just kind of have to go with it. And then as we just learned, we're about to get to the last movie in this series, so you're not going to see this character again. You only would have seen her had they greenlit another Wonder Woman, which I did want to mention real quick. A lot of people mention the Wonder Woman that came out in 2007 as the definitive Wonder Woman story.
Is so good. Yeah.
And so, ironically, that one also was going to have a sequel, but it never did. Same reason,
you know. It sucks because it's so good.
But yeah, for this one, with the ratings, even though I brought my Hush one down, I don't want to bring this one down anymore.
No,
I'll just say 6 out of 10 because, because the same thing is that, you know, I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed the heroes more than the villains, and that's the issue. Is it? So what about you?
I'll agree. A 6 out of 10 on this one. I want to give it a 7 just because I like the ending, but it's not enough to save the whole thing. Again, I almost felt myself distracted, you know, and I don't like that. If I'm watching a movie, I want to be into it. And this one, I just felt distracted. I think there were even parts where I kind of went back. And, you know, and I know we mentioned Veronica Cale, and we didn't talk about who she played in this, but basically she is some, I don't know, tech guru person. She owns a big corporation. Wonder Woman takes Songbird, or whatever her name is, to her and asks her to help her, to save her. And that's where we get the introduction of the character. But they don't explain why, like how she knows her. At least I don't remember how. You know, and then, you know, she tries to help her. Then she goes to her again to find Themyscira. How do you say it? Is it Themyscira? I can never remember. Themyscira. She helps her to find it, and then that's when Dr. Cyber, which I assume that's who Veronica Cale is. I don't know that, but I felt like she was Dr. Cyber the whole time. But I don't know who Dr. Cyber is, so I can't even tell you. So if you know who it is, feel free to let me in on this. But yeah, I was just like, you. Okay, good. I just assumed she was Dr. Cyber because it would be the only, because she said the only person that leaked the information about her company was Vanessa's mom, I think, or Vanessa. I think. And so the only other person that would have known any of this stuff would be her, Veronica Cale, because she was running the show. So I think she was Dr. Cyber. If I can draw any conclusion, she was Dr. Cyber. And so we get this ending where Wonder Woman comes back and tells her, you asked me to bring you something back from the Themyscira, and she thrusts her sword into her desk, and she's like, I'm the new protector, I'm the guardian of Themyscira. So if you ever try and basically she lays down the gauntlet. If you try to harm my family, my or Themyscira or anything, I'm standing in your way now. So even that was kind of I don't get it. That's what she brought with the sword, I guess. I didn't get that either.
Yeah, why would she leave her a weapon?
Yeah, I was like, I don't get it. Yeah, and so overall, yeah, a 6. I was just like, man, and especially when you compare it to the 2007 one, it's really hard. But I love the character. I love Wonder Woman. She's fantastic. I love Rosario Dawson. I liked some of the voice choices they had in here. Etta Candy, Cole Cash, or Cash Cole, whatever his name is, Victor. I like the interpretation that we got with the beginning of the movie incorporated into this. I was just kind of bored, for, I'd say 50% of it. I was just like, I like the intro, just the very intro before the credits start. And I liked the ending. The middle, they could have just and I like Cheetah. I like seeing Cheetah fight in this. She's also one of my favorite characters just because she's a cat person and I like cat people for some reason, although I will not see cats. I like the way she looks. She's one of my favorite cat, just designs and stuff. But again, no idea why she's her arch enemy. I don't know what happened there. Again, I'm not a huge Wonder Woman book. I don't read the books, but I like the character and I love her appearances in Justice League, and I love what she stands for and her power and all that stuff. Super amazing, no pun intended. Probably one of my top characters in the echelon of superheroes. But this one I could see if this one wouldn't get a sequel, but the 2007 definitely deserved a sequel.
Yeah. So anyway, so thanks again, guys. No, this is well over an hour now, but we appreciate y'all hanging in with these long reviews. So next week we finally get to go over Apokolips War. So be sure and tune in for that. So for those of you who have not subscribed yet, please subscribe. We actually just hit 250 subscribers, so whoop, whoop. So thank you guys for that. Just continue to to share, to like. Go back to the video that Roy was giving the toy giveaway, so that way we can get that video up to 100 views, and that way he can give away the toy.
My guys, it's free and it's awesome.
Yeah, I know it's the one video that hasn't, that's the lowest, of course.
Yeah.
We've actually had two of this series that have surpassed 100 already. So just keep watching, guys. Yeah. Anyway, if you like this video, hit like. Check out Roy's toy box in the comments below, or link to his Instagram, and you can check out all the cool toy photography. Until then, we will see you next time.
All right, bye, guys.